Okay, so I'm turning on my fancy. What the heck is going on here? Hold on.
Well, you're live, so.
You're
Yeah,
online.
I'm all live
You should have
now.
had all sorted out by now, Larry.
I
Oh,
can't do anything
this is a
until such
big,
time.
sad, big sad that.
See, we're talking about things you shouldn't do and things to look professional, and this just doesn't cut the mustard, man.
This is
No,
what
tis,
this
tis,
is what we're
tis.
gonna talk about today.
This
Larry
is
not being
exactly
ready.
it.
Ups. Goof ups. That's what we're talking about today.
Now I'm getting atrocious feedback.
Well, that's because I'm hearing it on my phone. Our audio's good.
There we go. There we go. Now I'm getting it. Are we live, right?
Yeah, you're live. You've been live.
All right. Oh, let's turn down. Okay. All right. We ready to go, guys?
Are we? Are you?
I have no idea. It's good. I'm glad you're finally going to be on the screen for everybody to see.
We'll
So
see how
we'll
long
wait.
that lasts.
We got about 30 seconds. Spanking's up already. We got some quotations is up. Hey, David, how are you? Good to see you. All right. Doing the countdown now. Everything is good.
Just
Heather.
go for it.
All right, let's go for it. All right, guys, let's go. Ready?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Those of you that have been listening already, you know that we're already on the air with Indian River Hauntings. And welcome back tonight as we start our show for the 14th day of April 2020 in the middle of the coronavirus event that we're all still experiencing. We sincerely hope that everybody out there that's joining us is taking care of yourselves, practicing social distancing, and for the most part, keeping yourselves safe. I want to say hi to everybody. My co-host, Chris over there in England.
Oh, you can
Forgot
still
your
remember who
name.
I am. My
He almost
God.
forgot.
Dear,
His age,
dear.
man.
And as you can see, we have Ryan up on the screen tonight because he's going to be joining us for a little bit more often tonight. If you are joining us for the first time, please hit subscribe. If you aren't joining us for the first time and you haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe and that little bell icon so that you become aware of all of our upcoming content. And there's going to be some more interesting things coming up in the not too distant future. So hit subscribe and hit that bell. Everybody say hi to Ryan with us tonight. Say hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
Now, who we got with us already? Spanky's up. Heather's up. David's up there, Quotatious over there in the UK. Commanding Judge Dredd, Your Honor, good to see you. Ike's up already. Hey, Ike, how are you? And Jimmy Wilson's with us. So, hey, we're going to have a great time tonight, guys. Chris and I got talking, and we're going to be talking about goofs, blunders, and missteps and stuff that we did. And we'd love to hear from you guys with things you've done that you maybe you'd like to do better in the future. Wanted to start off with our usual shout outs. And of course, all you guys that are joining us tonight, Spanky and Heather and Judge Dredd and Quotatious is all out there. But special hellos to my good friend Ike Enzi out there in New Mexico. He has a great show called IDK Paranormal. If you haven't watched that show yet, you need to. He's a cop like I am, retired, and he's got some really cool stories about ghosts and supernatural doings out there in the West from the law enforcement perspective. And also don't forget Chris's channel, Spirit Research Northeast. You want to hear some really cool stuff.
Oh, no. Please forget it. Please forget it.
Don't forget it. And then, of course, we got Ryan commanding this show. He's really in charge here. And Ryan's actually got a special job here tonight. Since I don't have any beer, Chris doesn't have any beer, but my son is going to do the beer challenge for tonight. So Ryan, what do we
knew that you weren't going to have anything and disappoint everybody.
What a guy. Thanks, Pat. Stick up with that. So what do you got, Ryan?
All right, so I have something called a beta andigator. This is what it looks like. I'm not good at describing things, but it's 8%. it's very malty. It's more darker than lighter stuff. I don't know. What else do you usually
More
tend to
dark
say?
than lighter. That's good, Ryan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I drink it. I don't describe it.
So where's it made at? Where's it bottled out of? Can you tell? Done
Abita
before.
Springs, LA, Los Angeles.
And it's called Gator. It should be
Yeah.
a.
It's from LA. It's from LA, but it's called Andy Gator. I mean, it has a little crown on the picture, so I guess that's a little.
So that's our beer challenge, Ryan. Andy Gator out of L.A. Thank you, Ryan, for that.
Well, I hate seeing a man drink alone. So
What do we got there? Lancaster.
Lancaster Bomber.
For those of you that aren't aware, the Lancaster was Great Britain's most famous bomber from the Second World War, and Chris and Ike's the same way. We're World War II aviation nuts, so that's a great beer. That's one thing I want to try next time we're over there.
I already had the pub all sorted out for you, but if you're not coming over this year, well, hey, I'll have to drink it all myself.
We can't have that now, can we?
No, and you'll have to come over as well, young man. Now you have the beard of experience. You're ready to go.
I've had it longer, but sometimes I'm told to get rid of it.
No. We want the ZZ top next time I see you.
Well, guys, tonight we're talking about our goofs. I mean, I know we're perfect and everything, right, Chris? We know everything, right?
Oh, I keep telling you that. I know absolutely everything, me. I really do. I never, ever, ever, ever make a mistake. Not ever. Not once. In 46 years of investigating, never made one mistake. I should be on television because they never make mistakes either.
Well, we all know better than that. We've all made mistakes, and even though we've been doing this for a while, we still make mistakes. And we want to talk about that tonight. We want to hear about stuff that maybe you guys wish you'd done better. We're going to tell you some stuff that we wish we had done better. Especially, everybody makes mistakes, especially early on when they start this. But I think probably the biggest missteps we made early on, that was very, very typical of newbies, so to speak, and that is taking out the equipment and not knowing what the hell it does.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's probably my biggest bugaboo now, and one thing I learned really, really quickly is learning about our equipment. But there's one thing that I'm really famous for, and I don't know if anybody out there has ever experienced this, but that's getting to an investigation that's an hour and a half away and realizing you left something home. How many of you have done that one before? Probably my favorite one is leaving without the extension cords.
Oh, I remember those. We've done that a couple times on accident, to be honest.
So what about you, Chris? Give me something that some of your missteps early on.
Well, don't forget, when I started this, there wasn't such a thing as equipment.
True.
You had a cassette literally a cassette recorder with 4 D-type batteries in. So you took a spare set of D-type batteries. So you're already weighed down by 3 tons of weight. Struggling out. I'm doing this as a 14-year-old, of course. Walking everywhere or on public transport, and it was just a nightmare. So the biggest mistake I've ever made is getting interested in the paranormal. Honest. Because once you get interested in it, it's a bit like Nietzsche saying about looking into the chasm, looking over the edge, and that the abyss stares back into you. Because I think the paranormal starts investigating you as much as you're investigating it. It's terrible.
That's actually an interesting question when you think about it. If we're talking a dimensional, I don't want to get too far off subject here, but if we're talking dimensions, maybe they're looking at us the same way we look at them. It's
pretty much, because I think once you take an interest, you sort of raise your head above the parapet. And once that head's raised above the parapet, they're looking at you.
Yeah. So what about
biggest mistake ever? Getting interested. Second biggest mistake of all, getting to somewhere and finding out that you haven't got any batteries. I've done that 2 or 3 times. I've got to places and the batteries have drained immediately, and you're searching around, and then you think, oh bugger. They're on the kitchen table.
Or you forgot
You
to
get
charge them.
everything, you get absolutely everything ready. You know what you're going to do. You get it all ready and you forget to take it. You've got so wound up about things, you forget to take it. And as more equipment's come along, you forget more equipment. I guarantee it's exactly the same with you. You get to somewhere and you wanted to try your new Mel meter out and you think, is it in the car? It's not in the bag. Is it in the car? You go and search the car. It's not in the car. Ryan, have you got this new X, Y, and Z? No, Ryan hasn't got it. Evan, have you got this X, Y, and Z? No, he hasn't. And then you think, oh, damn, I left it at home.
What about you, Ryan?
Oh, it's always forgetting to charge stuff or batteries the same way. I mean, there was the extension cords is one of the big ones for our bigger events that we tend like after like twice. It's happened twice to me. After that second time and how that went down, let's just say I never forgot again. But it's
What are you saying, Ryan?
I'm
That
not
Dad,
saying I didn't mention
Dad was
names.
batshit crazy or something? Are you?
You said it, not me.
Well, what do we do, guys? This is probably one of the big things that happens to a lot of folks forgetting equipment. What say you as far how do we help prevent that? What sort of things can we do?
Checklists and bags.
Check that and
That's
have
the only way. Checklist and bag. You check it off as you put it in the bag.
Mm-hmm. And you need, if you're part of a group, then I think having the checklist, but also have somebody assigned to that. It doesn't have to be the same person every time, but you should.
Yes, it does. I work on my own.
Oh, well, like take our group for a sec. Sometimes we'll have 10, 11 people of our team with us, and we're starting to get into routine now. One of our folks in particular, Trish Daly, is doing more of our equipment. She's come up with a list that we not only what do we have with us, but also who gets assigned what during an investigation, how long is it out? Because that's another thing that I think that I've made big mistakes on, not knowing who's got the equipment and then searching for where the evidence is. Well, who had this recorder? Who had this camera? You know what I'm saying? And then when was it checked out? And finding out exactly if you got a piece of evidence, when was it?
It's a good way to keep
other
everything organized, to be honest, because ever since we started doing that, we've had less and less equipment go missing or forgetting it at home, because we check it before we leave and we check it after we leave, and especially like after a big event.
Yeah.
Sometimes equipment would just miraculously disappear, but ever since we started checking it every time with our team leaders, every time we did a team, the chances of that just went lower and lower and lower, and it helped us keep our equipment in line so much. You can agree with that, Dad, right?
I do. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Equipment magically disappearing it brings me on to another topic, which is investigating with groups that you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's been a big problem of mine in the past, which is probably why I want to work on my own. In that you go to these places and it's sort of like I've been investigating there 2 years and another group comes along and they seem fine on the internet or Facebook or whatever. And as soon as they get there, you realize, oh my God, they're arseholes. And they're running wild and they're doing all sorts of things. And at the end of the night, not only have they ruined the location for you and you're not going to get back in ever again, half your equipment's gone. Yes, that's happened.
Yeah, we actually have a deal in Fellsmere where if a team calls and says we'd like to get into the school, the city generally puts all that through me. They don't let anybody in there unless I've okayed them. Mm-hmm. And the deal's always been, sure, you can come in, and the cost is you show us a spot in your area we can investigate. A little quid pro quo there, right? Just no financial cost, but if you're going to come in, then you got to take us to one of your places. Mm-hmm. And I had an event that occurred about a year and a half ago now where I was going to do this, and suddenly I get a call from a local media outlet saying, we understand there's a team coming in, and I was told to check with you. And I said, what are you talking about? These folks had asked to just investigate, but instead made it an event of their own, calling me in our area. You remember that one, Ryan?
Oh yes.
And it was all a ploy. You know, I was trying to just, hey, share. Let's be open and share like we talk about. But these folks were using me to feather their nest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another one of the one of the biggest mistakes that I've made is, like you said, investigating with folks you really haven't vetted and you don't know that well, and you end up, boy, it can just be a real horror show. So.
That leads on to other things. It's sort of like arranging to meet people that you don't know at a time and they just don't turn up. Okay. That's happened.
Well, at that point, it's their loss.
Well, so yes and no. I mean, if you've sort of gone to the trouble of getting something organised and the thing's going to cost $100, and then you're left carrying the can.
Well, are you talking about a meeting or an actual event?
Both. I mean, even if you meet up in the pub, you know, you might have met up and you've arranged for something or other, and they don't turn up, and you can end up out of pocket if you don't know them. So my sort of philosophy beforehand is meet people in the pub before you arrange anything, and you sort of say, you know, you find out what they're like, and do they like decent beer, and if they don't like decent beer and they want to sit there drinking orange juice, you know, there's something wrong.
Well, let's also mention this as far as missteps in investigating with folks you haven't vetted. What if they flat don't investigate the way you do? And I don't mean just maybe doing the preamble to their EVP sessions differently. Who cares about that? I'm talking about their philosophies of why they're there is different. You may, like us, we do not deal with Ouija boards at all, but you meet up with folks and they whip out the black robes and the Ouija boards and start, you know, doing incantations.
The black robes. I like the black robes. I'm all in favor of black robes. Oh, yeah.
So, but I mean, that can really put a crank in something, too. You know, our group, for example, has a very specific philosophy that all of us have come together, and people have come and gone, but the folks that have stayed together kind of go with that philosophy. So you get somebody else in there that does something totally the opposite of what you feel is appropriate, and they start doing it, and it can just get really bad. And let's face it, you're judged by the company you keep. If you're with a group that starts acting out like that, then the host of your venue is going to look at you the same way.
Pretty much. This is a big trouble that we have. Big trouble.
And that happened too.
I think like one of the things is when it comes to that, if other groups, say if two groups come together, if they investigate differently, I mean, they can learn off of each other. If two people investigate differently, it's two separate things they can learn. But when it comes to more radical things like what you said, Dad, to put it lightly, that's when it's just like it's more of a respect thing for the other team. If one team does not like that and does not want that, they should try to avoid that tactic of theirs, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, a lot of folks like to blame me about structures and rules, everybody doing it the same. That's not what I've been talking about. Everybody does things a little bit differently. I think your point's well taken, Ryan. You know, they may do stuff a little bit differently, and you can learn. That's the purpose of this whole show, for example, is us learning, because nobody's a complete expert. Nobody knows everything about this business. But when you
except for Ryan.
Right.
He knows everything.
100%.
Yeah, he has the beard of authority now.
Yeah. Well, Dan Squatch has arrived, so all's well now.
All's well now. One of the big no-nos for me that I've learned over time: don't do public events, because you just don't know what you're going to get. Full stop. You'll get people coming in and doing whatever they damn well feel like, with the words of, well, I've paid my money, I'm doing what I want.
I'll be honest with you on that one. We've been doing our some public events now for 4 years, 4 years, and rarely have we had that problem. And I think a lot of it is because we set down the ground rules right up front. I mean, and we've not really had that problem. We've had some folks that would come drunk, for example.
Had that one,
and we would have to ask them to leave, for example. So we've had a few minor things, but we've really been pretty fortunate in that respect. But I think that's because our prep up front is pretty thorough. But your point is still well taken.
The drinking thing is an interesting one for me. There are some groups out there who have this no alcohol whatsoever, blah 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 blah. Well, in my however many thousands of millions of years that I've been doing this, and that's how long it feels like, I always find that if you can get people together and have a pint in the pub before you start, or 2 pints in the pub, it makes it an awful lot easier because all the barriers start coming down and people start behaving normally.
It's when people overdo it and get absolutely blasted.
And yet you don't overdo it. You don't have 15 pints and wander around going, here, ghosty, ghosty, ghosty. I'm sure you've met the type. I really am. But no, I'm very much in favour of 1 or 2 pints or a gin and tonic or two before you start, because everybody then just relaxes.
Well, we have a 2-drink limit.
I think I can come on your investigations then. 2 pints, yeah.
You know, putting down these rules and coming up with ideas and thoughts has been one thing, but there's also one thing that I've learned over the years, and that's learning what your limitations are.
Yeah, that one.
You know, knowing where, for example, I know there's certain things I can't do, and sometimes I've had to get hit in the face a couple times before it's sunk in. I know that I've got to get stuff prepped right up front, and I've got to have a list, because if I don't, then I go kind of nuts at the end. Mm-hmm. You know, getting it ready. So I know my limitations as far as that, but also knowing your limitations and not exceeding them during an investigation. And sometimes I got to kind of check myself and realize that, you know, I've reached the plateau on this particular issue. Turn it over to Ryan or something along those lines. Because I'll tell you what, when Ryan goes on. When Ryan's at an investigation, I'm not just blowing smoke, son. I'm telling you the truth. When Ryan's at an investigation with me, things go right, because he knows exactly what I want, and he is one of the most organized people I've ever met.
I'm his secretary. That's what he's trying to say.
Right. The commissar, eh?
Oh, here, Dan Squatch brought something up. He mentioned one time during one of our events at the old school, we had an older lady that was plastered. I think she brought it with her, Danny. And she slid down the stairs head first. Yeah.
When did that happen? Was I even there for that one?
I don't know if you were there for that one.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, that
raises another issue, though, doesn't it? The health and safety issue.
Oh, 100%, especially.
You know, it really does. And the health and safety is. I've made so many balls ups with that you would not believe it. You think you've identified all the problems, all the pitfalls, all the things people could walk in, and someone will still walk into a door frame.
And this is one thing a lot of groups forget to do. For example, we're insured. We have insurance to cover us not only on our investigations, but on the events like the tours and stuff that we do for that purpose. And if you've got a group that does things and you don't have insurance, you need to think about it, because that's important. Also, having a liability, having them sign a liability waiver. And while that is not the end-all to beat-all, I get it that people can still do things. You know, you've got to do what you can to protect yourself, and insurance, liability, as well as setting down the ground rules right up front. And not doing that can be a huge mistake, whether it's an event or you're just bringing in a group to investigate with you. For example, I bring in a group to investigate with us at the old school in Fellsmere. I don't have them sign a waiver, I don't have insurance, and one of them does something stupid. It's the same effect as if it was a public event, you know? So it's something to think about that. Judge Dredge brings something up. One thing that springs to mind is you get somebody who plans a location. They will drive for miles and miles. They don't know its exact location. Yes, we have had that happen to us. We took a group of us who were meeting out in an area to go to a prison, and it really wasn't the group's fault. But they hadn't checked it out beforehand. We drove 2.5 hours to get there. Found out we couldn't get into the place. Yep, That is
I remember that.
a pain in the arse. Yeah. So, yeah. So planning and getting things set up so that you've protected yourself and done your best to protect folks that are either on with you on an event or investigating with you. I totally agree with that. But getting back to your limitations, you've talked about your limitations, Chris. As you like working alone, right?
No, I don't like working alone. I just don't work with other people well.
Okay.
It's a fine definition, isn't it? But if there's somebody there that I can work with, I'll work with them very happily.
Mm-hmm.
It takes me a lot to trust somebody.
I understand. Yeah.
You know, when I'm in medium mode, I am so vulnerable that, you know, I'm away with the fairies. I'm walking around. Anybody could do anything. I'm gullible. I can be led anywhere. I walk into things. I fall over things. I fall off things. So I've got to have someone there who I can trust who'll sort of say, hey, come on, watch your footing and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's somebody there that doesn't know me and what I'm going to do, then anything could happen. You know, they'll just sort of watch me fall over and laugh.
Mm-hmm. So you understand that about yourself, and there are some folks that they get into paranormal investigation, but they don't really realize that this disturbs them, or they haven't really focused on what it is they're doing, and when it confronts them, they panic, they get upset. So knowing your limitations is a big pitfall that you can run into on these types of things.
I mean, the other one that I've actually got, which is really annoying, is why I can't work with other people more than anything else, is I'll think, Thursday's a good day, the sun's out, it's going to be nice and warm, we'll go to so-and-so and so-and-so. During Thursday, I'll just have a feeling that says, you're not going to do it. And that's it. I listen to what it says. So periodically, boom, no, it's not going to happen. And you can't run a group like that. If you sort of say Thursday the 12th, we're going to do so-and-so, you have to do it. But if the spirits are saying to me, you do not go there today, I listen to it. So this is why I have to work on my own.
And you know, it's funny because as you know, I don't claim to have that ability, but I do get that gut feeling. You know, don't do this, don't go there. Mm-hmm. But I do not have that. I don't have that extra sense that you do of something physically saying or in your mind saying, don't do that. Spanky Maxwell has said you can work with us after 2 pints. So I guess that means you're part of my team over here now, Chris. Oh, and Dan Squatch says don't be gullible and take candy from strangers in vans, Chris. So he says don't be gullible
in vans.
So
he hasn't seen the size of me, has he?
Dan, Dan Squatch. Chris is about your size, dude. So just FYI.
So if I take something from someone in a van, they've just got to watch themselves.
What were you going to say, Ryan? Ryan?
No,
what were you going to say?
I was just making a stupid comment. Keep going.
Okay.
Oh, don't worry. Stupid comments are allowed on this one because we're talking about what we've done stupidly.
We've got a great group watching us tonight. Jimmy's out there, Spanky, Dan Squatch, Judge Dredd. Ike, you're out there. What have you guys done that you consider to be a misstep that you learned from? As you know, this show is about us just talking and sharing. So if you've had an experience out there, something that has happened to you that you've learned from and like to share, go ahead and bring it up, and I'll mention it right out here. One of the things that
I was going to say, one of the big ones as well, not making notes.
Boy, that's a fight I had early on with our early teams.
Yeah.
People just didn't want to take notes, and it made me nuts. Evan and I were talking about that earlier today. I had a really, really difficult time with that. Documentation.
Documentation.
In my business, in the cop business, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. But on the same token, it's happened to me where things started, just coming out of the woodwork. Things were happening so quickly. It gets done. I'm like, wow, isn't that great? Oh, sorry, family show.
Shit.
I got to write that down. So I make those mistakes.
Feces, old bean, feces.
Well, what cops do, I don't know if anybody ever knows this, but we tend to write
donuts.
We write on our hands, so sometimes I'll take notes there. But, okay. Ike has just come up with something, and I got to agree with this one. Don't eat Mexican food before an investigation. Got to agree with that one. Your stomach will be making EVPs all night long.
Excellent.
Frogs, right?
I agree with that one. But yeah, documentation and
documentation is a big one. The only way I found of doing this is to actually end the investigation before the pubs close, and then sit everyone down with a pint individually and say, what happened to you?
Well, what we do as a group, we now have, and I got Dan Squatch a lot of credit for this. He developed this. We have like a space of time between each what we call rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And during each rotation, I'm sitting at command center, sometimes Dan is, and the team leader for me, we'll usually break up into 2 or 3 teams. And during this downtime between sessions, the team leader will come to say, we had this, we had that, and I will type it right into the computer.
That's admirable. That really is. I mean, I've never got to that level.
Well, we tried everything. We tried having folks having a scribe on each team. Mm-hmm. That wasn't working. We tried having a team leader jot it down. That wasn't working. I mean, in our earlier investigations, I told people, I'm too busy investigating to write it down. Well, then you're really not investigating. You're just having
definitely not. Part
you're
of
having a good time.
Documenting it. It's all one big thing. You got to document. You got to record. You got to ask questions. It's all one thing.
Well, going back to that, that's where there's a difference between an actual investigator and a thrill seeker. Oh, yeah. A thrill seeker is only out there to just have a little bit of fun. And okay, there's a place for that. But if you're investigating and you're looking to collect data, you got to document it. EVPs is a great example. It wasn't that long ago, and it was like you said, nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. I was going through some of the data from an investigation we had within the last year or so, and I'm listening to an EVP, and you know what? The people that were doing it didn't say who was there, what time it was. More importantly, they didn't say where they were in the venue. So I don't know where they were when they got what they got.
I mean, it's also depending on what the recording device is, because a lot of the time we do end up using people's phones to record, because phones can work, and they do work. I've had first-hand experience on that. And when it comes to time and date, the phone will actually tell you this is when it started and this is the date. Yes, it's one thing, but it's also very important to put your location and stuff as well. Yeah. And like your team, and if you're in a team and if you have a team number, say this is team 1 at blah, blah, blah at this time. If it's like a basic recorder like we have on our equipment line, yes, you need to put everything down. But if it's somebody's phone, then yes, because when you switch it from the phone to the computer, it can also tell you the time and date it was done as well.
How do you out there document when you get something? What do you do to document your stuff, and what do you do with it afterwards? If anybody would share that, I'd love to hear what your thoughts and ideas are on that also. How about, I'm just looking at my list here of some of the things. Lord knows I've made my share and continue to make my share of mistakes on things. But how about when you got a group, and this has happened to us a lot, get there, you want to get skating, get the stuff, you hook up the cameras, get the equipment up there, and then team A, B, and C go to these places. You don't bother to realize that when team A is here and team B is there.
I've lost all that.
You're going to have to start over, senor.
I've lost all of that.
Did my voice go out, or did I talk too fast?
You're a robot.
It's just breaking up everywhere.
Oh, Lord, I'm sorry. Okay. You get to an investigation, and you send the teams out, but you haven't taken the time to see where each team is at, and they kind of step all over each other. one side's doing an EVP and the other side's talking over them, things like that. So not taking the time to set things up properly when you get there. Did that come out of
that comes down to protocols. That really does. And that's just keeping grips on what's happening where, with whom, and when, and just keeping it. This is why I won't work with people that I don't know. It didn't happen to me. It happened to friends of mine who I did trust at the time, and they were doing their normal, what we'd consider an investigation. And another group they didn't know was just running all over the building, thud, 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 scream, scream, ha, 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 thud, 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 thud. And, they'd meet up in, after a coffee, having a coffee break somewhere. And my friends were sort of saying to them, what did you find in so-and-so? Oh, that was absolutely dead. And my friends were saying, well, we got a lot of information there, EVPs. Oh, brilliant. Thud, 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 thud. They were off again. Ha, 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 screaming, shouting. So protocols, you've got to obey certain rules.
Yeah.
Even I will admit you've got to obey rules.
Wow. Did you make sure you document that one, Ryan?
What?
Yeah.
You said about following rules. Document that for me.
I guarantee I will break every single one by walking around.
Well,
you've seen me at Elvington. I can't help it. I just follow what's going on.
Well, yeah, but knowing the people you're with, and I knew you were like that, you just adapt. You just have to adapt. But
you just say to whoever's watching, "Oh, don't worry, he's just a lunatic. He's quite happy."
Ike out there in New Mexico says another mistake in the early days, and this is a famous one, and I guarantee you that most of you out there can say this happened to me, and that's to keep the camera rolling at all times, because stuff happens as soon as you turn it off.
Can I add to that one?
Yes.
Take the lens cap off.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, right?
No, don't laugh. I've done it. Done it. You suddenly see something and you shoot, and then you go, shit, I've left the lens cap on.
How many how many of you out there have had a situation where something happened and you're thinking, nuts, I just turned the camera on, or off rather, and you're like, ah.
And what happens when you turn everything off? Always.
Yeah. Have you had the? I'm sure you've had the phenomena that you turn up at a site, you've got nothing ready, and something happens.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you've had that, and then for the rest of the night, nothing happens.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I will always kick myself for was at RAF Tholthorpe, which is just above York, and we were getting everything out of the car, and I didn't get my gear out. Usually I'd get a recorder out and a camera out and I'd have it ready. Mm-hmm. No, I thought I'd help them. I'd get all their cables and this, that, and the other, and kitchen sink and oven and microwave and everything else out the car boot. And all of a sudden, from the sky over the airfield, whom, whom, whum, 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 as a 4-engine bomber flew over, and I had no way of recording it.
And of course, the 4-engine bomber couldn't be seen because it was
pitch black.
Yeah.
Couldn't have seen it. Probably. Oh my God, what's he up to? What's he up to? I don't know what Ryan's up to. Sorry. You couldn't have seen anything anyway. But if I'd have had a recorder, I'd have had it. I'd have recorded it. I'd have been really happy. But always just turn a recorder on or turn your camera on and have it ready. And as soon as you get there.
We got lucky, and Dan is actually one that did this, and I've actually talked about this in the show before. We were at a prison, and we were the only team that had ever gotten in there, and we walked out of the lockdown, and Dan kept the recorder going. And you hear Evan talk about it's a shame they were locked up here in life, and they're locked up in the afterlife. And remember, I talked about this one, and we get that EVP that says "Hell, we ain't dead," clear as a bell. Well, if Dan had not kept that recorder going, we never would have gotten that.
Exactly.
So
you remember what it comes back. Sorry, we're sort of talking over. I do apologize. It comes back to what I'm saying about once you study the paranormal, it starts studying you, and it's almost like it's having fun. Look, he hasn't got anything on. Quick, do something.
That's entirely possible. Heather, out in there in Las Vegas, says, talks about, she writes a post-investigation report, which is good. What was witnessed, points of evidence in the videos. Then they print it out, put all the photo, audio, and video in a thumb drive and place it in an envelope with a case number and file on it. Now, do you keep that then, Heather? Do you keep that in a secure place? Do you give a copy of that to your client? I'm assuming you do, but if you could answer that. Then you also said the activity happens when I'm changing SD cards all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Changing, let's do something now.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like it picks its moment.
Yeah, yeah.
It is so bizarre. It is so fickle. Look, Eggleston Abbey. I'd love to get you to Eggleston Abbey over here, because as soon as you walk on that site, you've got to change your batteries because it just drains them. Bang, gone. Mm-hmm. And then, new batteries, you just put new batteries in the car park. You've walked 25 yards, crossed into the Abbey, batteries are dead. You've got to put the new batteries in damn quick, because that's when you're going to get your EVPs.
Heather just confirmed that for you. Thanks, Heather. Kind of a sidebar here. I got to tell you this, because this just happened before the coronavirus thing hit. There's another place in Sebastian that we investigate, the Young Boutiques. Ryan, been there with us on that one, Ryan?
No.
Okay. Right next door is one of the oldest homes in the town.
Yeah. By
one of the pioneers there. A guy, a professional treasure hunter, was back there with all of his fancy metal detection gear. He couldn't go in the backyard without every one of his batteries being drained, and he had just changed them. Well, that's the place we're heading to right as soon as this thing lifts. The team's heading back over there to see what we can find out.
Try to make it to that one, definitely, then.
Yeah, that was wild. And it was interesting because in the backyard they found a plate from an organization. Some of you may have heard of it before. They're an insurance company now, oddly enough, but it's called Woodmen of the World. And they found a small plate buried in the ground back there. And that plate was what they used to put on gravestones.
Excellent.
So now we're wondering if we've got a gravestone in the grave in that backyard that back in the early 1900s. So interesting. Anyway, quick side point there. Other goofs have, and this is something that we've had to put a stop to, because it's a natural thing for people, but we were finding that it infected the rest of the organization during an investigation. And that's when something happens to somebody. They get touched, they get scratched, and then, oh, look, so-and-so got scratched, so-and-so got touched. Well, once everybody else in the group hears that, they freak out. But they also now, if the next team goes into that room, they may be predisposed to feeling something that may not be accurate. So what we've come to do is, if you have Chris, you're with us on investigation, you walk up to me and you say something just grabbed my hair and pulled it hard. Myself and Dan will take you out and we'll interview you ourselves.
Oh, well, I was expecting that, me and Dan will take you out and kick 3 bells of shit out of you.
No, what I'm getting at is we'll document what happened, but we don't broadcast the event to everybody, so that we talk about it when it's all over, but we don't broadcast it then so as not to taint anybody else. Because folks, even folks that have the best intentions, once they get a suggestion, sometimes it can affect them. So that's
not just. I'll take that one step further as well. That you get the narcissism comes in. That they've had something happen to them. I want to be the center of attention. I'm going to say something's happened to me.
Well, see,
I've seen that. Well,
I've seen it too, but with my group in particular, which I firmly, no offense to everybody else in the whole wide world, but I'm very protective of FBPI. I think I got the best team in the whole world out there. I don't see any of my folks doing that. But what I do see as a part of human nature is people reacting because, well, it happened here, something going to happen to me, and it just taints what they're feeling. Whereas if they don't know something happened in that room, you get more of a true feeling. Now, on the flip side of that, you get your hair pulled and you come out and Dan and I interview you, we document it. Then Ryan's team goes in there. He doesn't know anything about it. The same thing happens to him. That is good evidence.
I can give you better evidence.
Yeah. So
One example at the Pierce Institute, which is up in Glasgow. We did a public. I helped out a friend to do a public event, and while we were doing this, I was sort of presenting it with Ryan, and I was saying, "There's a dog, and it's whatever dog it was, and it was sniffing around, and it's doing this, 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 this." And then one of the women said, "Yeah, I've just felt a dog around my leg." And then when she came out of the room, her jeans were covered in dog paw prints.
really,
Dusty dog paw prints.
well, that's kind of hard to fake that one. I mean,
Exactly. I mean, it does happen. But nobody else in the room was saying, we can feel the dog, this, but one.
yeah. But if you kept it quiet, and of course, just like everybody else, we'd get excited. We got a piece of evidence. We'd want to share it right away. But if you can kind of keep that under wraps, and then it happened to somebody else, and you can unequivocally show that they had no other knowledge of it, that's good stuff. In my opinion.
I can't, as I said, I can't do that because, get somebody pulling my hair, it'll be a case of, who the do you think you are?
Well, that's okay. I mean, then you just tell us about it. Any thoughts on that, Ryan?
No, I'm with you guys all the way.
Yeah, you see, you two need to come over here and see how I investigate, and then I can see how you investigate.
Well, we've seen how you investigate. We were there long
Yeah,
enough.
we kind of shared our. Yeah,
What we need to do is go through it like a legitimate full one with you. That we just didn't have time to do. But
No,
Yeah,
that was a shame. That was a shame.
We will.
But we will at some stage in the future. We will either I'll come over there or you'll come over here, and we'll do something.
Well, you know what we're going to do,
Listen to that.
Chris?
Chris said he'll come over here.
Well,
Take
Chris,
note
yeah,
of that.
It's if I can get the money together.
and then we're going to go see Ike. Ike, you hear that, bud? I'm still coming out to see you.
So that means Ike's got to get the bonfire going and supply a crate of beer.
Oh, trust me, I don't think you'll have any issues with that.
Right, that's all right then.
Going through my little notes here, poor coordination, we talked about that, documenting, provoke. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm a huge, I hate it, but have I done it? Yeah, guilty in one of my early investigations. Watched too much TV, I think. And you know what? That was when my brother and I, Tom, your Uncle Tom, we went to Eastern State. And that was early on. And I remember we were down in the, where the folks that were on the death chambers were. The word just went right out of my mouth. And nothing was happening, so I got real, come on, you coward, talk to me type of thing.
Oh, I see.
And I'm embarrassed about that. I'm embarrassed because I think back on that, and that's probably, and I was embarrassed right after I did it, thinking, why did you do that, Larry? And in some ways, I think that was almost like my guiding point, where I wanted from that point on to make sure that I never ever acted that way again. I didn't get crazy.
You live and you learn.
Well, exactly.
We all
That's
do.
thing.
It's just like when you're a kid, you always have that one thing that you look back and you're just like, why did I do that? But then you look nowadays,
What do you mean
like,
one thing? Where's this one thing come into it? I've got so many. You just think, oh my God, why did I do that?
I mean, like I said, it's just a learning point. That's what shapes us. That's what makes us better in the future.
And
See, this is why I'm so screwed up. I did so many stupid bloody things.
Well, that's the point of this show tonight, too, is to learn, to help. Man, none of us know all the answers. All of us make mistakes. We continue. So by talking about it and getting this out, maybe I just had my own little confessional here, you learn from it and you get better. And that's what it's all about, is just getting better. I don't know if anybody...
I think everybody's gone through the here ghosty phase. At one stage or other, they get it out of their system. Well, some people never do get it out of their system, but most of us sort of go through it once or twice and they think, why the hell am I doing this bollocks? And then get on to do something reasonable. And hopefully they read a few books rather than watch TV and things improve.
I got to ask a question. Dan Squatch comes up and says, Larry Baggins. And Jim says that's what he was about to say. Get me in on that joke, guys. I don't know. And see, he jumps in on it too. So I'm not quite sure. Larry Baggins. I'm sure it's some sort of Lord of the Rings reference.
Well, it's the Hobbit, isn't it? That's the thing. It's the Hobbit.
Yeah. So help me with that one, guys. Here's another one. Early mistakes that we made too, and one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of houses is because of the people. Sometimes they've got a bunch of issues. But one of the early mistakes that we made as a team was Zach Baggins. Okay, I got you. They were calling me Zach Baggins. That's what it is.
That's his last name.
Yeah, okay. That was I got it. But that's not doing a good background. Now, I got a little thing with an individual not too long ago that didn't want me doing any kind of background on their property. Well, doing a background, I could see not doing a background to find out all the events that went in there, so we came in fresh as to what happened. But doing a background as far as who's lived there before, were there any tragedies that occurred there, any deaths, any violent things that happened there, who owned the property, what was there before they built on that property, that's all pieces of information that are helpful. Now, a lot of times when we do if we do a home, we're also going to talk about, or we're going to talk to them about the homeowner's situation and learn a little bit more about them. And I know early on we just didn't do a lot of good backgrounds, and we really ran into some screwballs out there.
Mm-hmm.
That, and so doing a decent background, at least know where you're going, and for no other reason, for safety purposes. Like the floor is about ready to fall in. Or
well, like there is that. Yeah, I tend not to do that. I'd like to, but I find it just gets in the way for me. That sounds silly, doesn't it? That sounds silly, but it just tends to get in the way. I've just got to be freewheeling and just think, right, what's here?
But from a safety standpoint, wouldn't you want to know, like there was a fire there that destroyed a good portion of the second floor and they never fixed it properly?
Only afterwards. I mean, I wouldn't be doing anything of mine in a building like that. That's the thing. I wouldn't be in a derelict, decrepit building, bursting in doing an urbex. It's got to be, people call me in to do places. It's because they've got a problem.
Yeah. Well,
so
I guess that's
me knowing beforehand tends to just. It's not that I'll suddenly come out with repeating stuff that people have told me. It's a case of it sort of gets in the way.
Well,
I then turn around and say, well, it can't be what I'm picking up on because it doesn't fit the facts.
But I'm not so much talking about what events or what activity they're having on in the venue. I'm talking about the history of it. And that helps us, too, because, for example, when we did the Paradolli Brewery, we got a list of all the past postmasters there. We used their names as so-and-so.
No, that's good. That's good.
So, but if you don't do your background, you don't get that.
But once again, that then clouds what I'm doing. So
yeah,
we come back to the two sides of investigating.
But that's not a game breaker there. I can know the history of it and not give it to you for your
absolutely purpose. No, that's absolutely perfect.
That's not an issue.
That approach is absolutely perfect. I mean, I don't need to know anything about the place. Literally, you could take me there blindfolded and I'll just walk around for half an hour, 45 minutes, tell you what I can see, this and that, then I'll go home. Yeah. But that's my investigation.
Are you talking about people that can like Chris, and then comparing it to what we've learned and what we've investigated through the history and stuff, and from us being in the house? I'm sorry, I walked away for a second.
What we're talking about is I believe in doing a background of the property, not the events going on in there necessarily, but the property. Okay. And Chris saying that kind of clouds it for him. But see, that's all about adaptation. We just work it so that he doesn't get that information, but we've at least got it present so that those of us that aren't in Chris's shoes can ask questions that might get us a response.
And then
So
you can cross-reference it, right?
absolutely.
At the end of the
that.
investigation, it all comes together. This is the thing. I mean, but it has to be sort of slightly separate. I mean,
Yeah.
I can go and sit in an investigation, but I have to turn off what I do.
Mhm.
Literally, I have to just turn this side off completely and utterly, and that's fairly hard, but it can be done. But if you want the medium side, that takes over because I'm using, if you like, the left side of the brain, and then in the investigation, I use the right side of the brain.
Well, and I think this is another mistake a lot of us make. I am guilty of this one. And I've got to tell you, especially since I've gotten to know you, Chris, I've gotten a bit of more of an open mind since when we worked together in England. And that's that you can't be so set in your ways that you're unable to adapt to new ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big mistake that I made. And Dan will tell you, I'm sure I'm going to get some comment from Dan over here about having to stick up my butt. But
yeah,
that's how I was, because that's the world I grew up in. You conduct an investigation and you do it in a very structured way. And I was a pain in the ass about it. There's no question. I'm getting better. Oh, don't turn your head. I'm getting better because I'm understanding the importance of being adaptable. And that's a huge mistake that I made for a long time. And I'm really just starting to get better with it.
Well, you've now got Evan on your hands, and he'll start pulling that stick out.
You've been good though, Dad. You really have. I mean, people change. That's a bad way to put it. I'm sorry, but everyone changes over time. We all mature. We all adapt. We all get better. And you have 100%. I have. My God, I was only 11 when we started.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
And he's only 13 and a half now. You wouldn't believe it, would you?
Well, and that's what this show is all about, is talking about, the mistakes that we've made, the missteps, and what can we do to improve it. Dan says he's not touching that stick, by the way. So
no, do not touch that stick. Unless you've got double gloves on.
Hey guys, I'm going to get off topic here because we've only got 5 minutes left, but something has really been preying on me here, and I want to throw this out to you and anybody else out there that's listening too. And it's kind of off subject. But does anybody out there, Chris, anybody else that's listening, Dan, everybody, do you find an increase, decrease, or no change in paranormal activity prior to a tragedy?
No change. No difference.
None?
None at all.
Ryan?
I wouldn't know. I mean, like, I haven't investigated a place where a tragedy just happened. I wouldn't know.
I will say that after a tragedy, you get a lot of screaming in the ether.
After. Well, I'm kind of referring. This question was brought up to me in an interview I did the other night. I was asked whether or not things were really active before this coronavirus thing hit. And to be honest with you, and Ryan, you may or may not know this because you're up in Orlando, but Fellsmere, quiet as a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Quiet.
Well, you got to think of the population too. It's very small compared to other places.
But the paranormal activity in Fellsmere
is
as active as any place anywhere else. But the paranormal activity in Fellsmere, maybe I should have prefaced it with that, was quiet. We got hardly anything for several months prior to this happening. Now, it may not mean anything. That's why I'm tossing it out there. If anybody's had any experience or thoughts on that. And since I was asked that question, it's been really playing on my mind. I don't know.
Are you talking about paranormal, like a fluctuation in paranormal activity before a tragedy hits or after it hits?
Either. Is there more activity?
After, definitely.
Okay. Well, that's something to think about here. Both Spanky, by the way, what thinks our whole crew has evolved. And boy, I'll tell you what, we 100%.
have. 100%. Oh, God, yeah.
FBI, I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm prejudiced. I admit it. FBPI, number one. And it's because of the folks that are in it. greatest group of guys and gals in the world to paranormal investigate. Dan Squatch says in every investigation he's learned something. And man, Dan, if there's anybody that said, I mean, that is absolutely correct. We all learn from each one. So that's exactly right.
Putting into a broader context of paranormal and bringing cryptid in, one of the things I learned very, very, very early, don't walk around woods or forest on your own at night.
Ooh, yeah.
Full stop. Do not. You're asking for trouble.
You know, and whether it's
and I guarantee that Dan will agree with me on this. I'm sure he will. You do not do it on your own at night in woods.
Well, I think that goes also not only for cryptid work, but also for the paranormal work. Not just safety, first of all, but second of all, if something happens and you're by yourself and you've got no camera going, you've got no way to prove it. You've got no witness. So that's another mistake, and I catch myself doing it. For example, we'll be at an investigation, and I'll be at the command thing, and I'm just sitting there watching the monitors, and I'll pick up the SLS camera, and I'll go find a group. But I may walk off into a room and see what I see. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't be doing that.
You doing your sitting at monitors is something I'd love to do, because as you know, I can actually project myself into the room and see what's going on, so I could actually watch the monitor with you and say so and so is going on in that room, and nobody else would know.
That would be cool.
Well, when we do the next one, I'm gonna call you. So
right.
Don't. Hey, Dan says Bigfoot prefers you are alone.
Oh. Yeah, he does. Yes, he does. That's the trouble.
This guy right here. Is that who you're talking about, Danny boy? So at any rate, wow, the hour's gone already. Can you believe it, guys?
Damn.
Yep. It always does.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun actually being part of it. And not
see, it's not that bad, is it?
Hey, if you like seeing Ryan as a visual part of the show, let me know on my email, ghostguy59@gmail.com. Let me know right here in the comments on the show tonight. But let me know if you like Ryan having out there, because Chris and I really enjoyed having him.
Yeah.
Put it in the comments on the YouTube video, because that's the one I'm most likely to see, because I look at all of our videos and work on those.
So if you've enjoyed seeing Ryan out there being part of this, an active part of the show, do me a favor, comment on the show where he can see him too, so he knows whether or not he's wanted.
It's not that. I think the biggest thing is, like, I don't want to be like, you two are just going at it all the time, and I just don't want to have like a third person and it be too crowded within all the voices.
No, you just speak your mind, man. I mean, you know what we're going to do? We're going to shout at you. You shout back.
You guys are just so mean to me.
Yeah,
folks,
we're mean old grumpy gits. Me and Larry. You just be a mean young grumpy git.
Folks, the bottom line is this show is about all of us. It's not about me, Chris, and it's about all of us and learning from each other. So that's why we want this show to grow. We want this to become a forum for folks to come and talk about, maybe come up with some new ideas. Maybe after some discussion on this show, somebody out there is going to say, hey, I've got an idea, and you come on here and you share it with us, and somebody else takes the idea and runs with it. Next thing you know, we might have that break we're looking for.
Oh, I've actually got a brilliant idea.
What's that?
My idea is that if you have cream cakes and beer, you get more activity.
Cream cakes and beer.
Yeah, cream cakes and beer. And you sit there all night long eating cream cakes and drinking beer, and things happen. I guarantee it. I guarantee you'll see apparitions and everything.
I'm sure they do. Okay.
I can see where you're getting at with that, Chris. I really do, but I think that's a whole discussion for another episode, to be honest.
Oh, boo, boo. We want cream cakes and alcohol.
Because that comes to how people feel and how they are during an investigation. Because when people are more relaxed, things tend to happen.
People, people are more relaxed. It's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you have some thoughts, something you'd like to discuss on the show, get a hold of me at ghostguy59, all lowercase, at gmail.com. Send me a message. Let me know what you want to talk about. I've already gotten some great stuff from some of the folks out there. I know Judge Dredd sent me some things. A few other folks have sent me some things that I've really enjoyed listening to. But if you have some ideas, something you want to talk about, reach out and let me know. ghostguy59@gmail.com. You can also check out our website at www.paranormalfbi.com or www.indianriverhauntings.com if you want to see what my team's up to. And we're not doing much now, but we hopefully will be soon. But most important, if you haven't subscribed, please do. We're starting to inch closer to that 100. So if you get a chance and you haven't subscribed, please do so. With that, any parting words, gentlemen?
Nope.
Chris?
Oh, you said gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Any words before we call it a night?
I think that's about it. I think we're sort of dried up.
Okay.
And
Folks,
let's face it, it's 1 o'clock in the morning over here. So.
All right, go to bed. Oh. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Share this with somebody. The more people we get listening to it, the more ideas we get, the more we're helping everybody in the field. So until next time, folks, we'll see you next Tuesday. And until then, we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night.
Oh no. End stream.
Oh no.